Good evening and welcome to Sim Racing Online. My name is Neil Wood. I am your host for the second round of the Group 5 DRM 70s to 80s Championship. We are here at Hockenheim for 45 minutes of racing. I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this for ever since the first round. So the first round that took place at Norris Ring. So you can see our calendar there. We are at the 1991 version of Hockenheim. So it's the version with all the straights and all the chicanes. So we are set for some very fast racing around the forests of Germany. Lots of slipstreaming, lots of car choice is going to be very, very difficult for these guys because they've got five rounds and 5 different cars to choose from. We'll go through that in a second. So today, Hockenheim, on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, will be Zelda 1979. So we are heading backwards a little bit with the historic theme to match the cars of this era. So Zelda 1979, which should be a very interesting layout for these cars to try and negotiate around. Then we go back to Zandvoort, the 1967 layout. So that's going to be very tight for what are 500 to I have seen quoted 1,000 horsepower cars. That will be on the 28th of February, and then we head for the last round on what I believe is the 2001 version of the Nürburgring GP circuit. That will be on the 14th of March. So as I said, these guys have the option to pick a car each round. They have to pick a different car each round, so they've got 5 cars and 5 rounds. These are the cars that they've got to choose from. So they have the BMW E21, the BMW M1, which I said earlier was probably the most powerful of the lot, quoted as having 1,000 horsepower, but I don't quite believe it. Then we have the Ford Capri Zack Speed. And then we have these Lancia M2 and the Porsche 935. So a good selection of cars for these drivers to choose from. Now, as I said, we are at Hockenheim, the 1991 layout, which is all the straights and all the chicanes. So if we just look at the track info, you will see that this is the layout that we're going to be running on. Quite a large circuit. So heading up the straights, going through a couple of chicanes, so Brim Chicane 1, then you've got the Oscurve Chicane and Brim Chicane 2, then we head back to the most familiar stadium section. So 15 turns, the laps should be around 2 minutes or so. We're seeing on the timesheets that they're putting in lap times of around bang on 2 minutes. Bang on 2 minutes. So that's our track. Why don't we check out some track action and see these guys out on track doing their thing. So let's take that away and see if we can see some track action. Here we go. This is more like it. This is more like it. I've had some technical problems this week, so it's been all kinds of messed up. So if there's any problems with the stream, then I apologize. So let's see if we can get the names. We've got a couple of names on the list which will be brothers or at least relations, so they will have different first names and surnames, and it's just to keep me on my toes. That's what it's for. So we join Rob Milliken heading down one of the back straight, coming into what is the stadium section of the track. This is the BMW M1. So coming into the stadium section around the Sachs curve, Route 13 and 14. And then try not to run wide because you're heading out into the undergrowth through the last 15th turn, which is the Suds curve, and across the line. So currently practice time's 2 minutes. 2 minutes point 8, or is it 2 minutes point 6? So we've got a couple of drivers that are changing cars from last time. So Phil Brown Looking down the list, let's see if Phil Brown was in the Ford Capri last time, but he's decided the BMW M1 maybe suits this track better. His radiator is smoking a little bit here. Have seen that a lot of people have mentioned that by default the radiator is closed an awful lot and needs to be opened up, because big long straights flat out for most of this course, and then you come down to that piddly little chicane. I suppose you can't really call them straights actually, can you? They are curves, so very tight coming through that chicane. I can't really see two people going too wide through there. So through the Ost curve, Phil Brown comes, still smoking away down one of the straights. And then we'll head into the left or right of the Brim chicane 2. You can pop over the curbs, it seems. They're not too high. Back in the 80s, these curbs would probably not be able to be touched because they would have been too high. You can actually see through the car from the back there. Then heading into the stadium section, which proved very difficult. The tight turns of Norris Ring proved very difficult for people that chose the BMW M1, because it seems like it's a very quick car, but it's very difficult through the twisty section. What I was saying before, you don't want to get this part wrong because you're heading out towards the undergrowth. So we have 45 minutes of racing, and there's a little bit of a change from round 1, where drivers will be having to do a mandatory pit stop, and the pit window opens from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So we've got to watch out for the mandatory pit stop. They only have to change tyres. They don't have to put in any fuel. It's going to be very tight for some of these guys on fuel. I think particularly the Ford Capri is going to be very tight on fuel. And you can, considering the cars are going to be flat out for most of this. So this is Nick Westy, or Bjorn Hagman now. Bjorn Hagman, I think, we took one of the Porsches last time out. I have to get my cheat sheet up so I can see who was who and what was what. So Porsche 935 Bjorn Hagman took. So that's not quite the way to come into that chicane. Phil Brown's finding out. He's also finding out that probably denting the radiator is not a good idea. So just to keep me on my toes, I've got a couple of newcomers. Gaten Noyes is currently on provisional pole for practice, and then we have Nick Westy currently in third. Got a little bit of time to find. It seems that the drivers at the top, even the Ford Capri seems to be matched with the BMW M1, so it looks like those two cars are going to be very competitive. So looking down my list, Nick Westy took the BMW E21 last time. One car that wasn't picked was the Lancia M2, and I think I probably missed that in my description, but the Lancia M2 didn't seem a popular choice, but it seems that it might be a choice for the long straights of Hockenheim. So again, that's a little bit of a look at the Ford Capri. Now the Ford Capri is very wedge shaped. Looks very aerodynamically efficient. So you see John van der Geest in the blue Ford Capri currently in 5th place, banging it off the red line coming out the Ost curve. So looking down my list, let's see if we can find John van der Geest. So John van der Geest took the BMW E21 as well. It's good that it spiced things up. The car choice means that drivers will have to maybe think a little bit strategically of what car might suit what track. So I was a little bit surprised that a few people took the BMW M1 through the streets of streets of Norrisring, because it's a very tight circuit, very noticeably a hairpin at each end of it, or right angle turns at the latter end, but there was a chicane, what you could maybe call turn 1 and turn 2. This, however, is very different. Now, I did see in the discussions, and I did mention to a few drivers that people that aren't really familiar with this layout of circuit, you saw John Van der Geest just coming into the pits just then. The 1991 version of this circuit does have a particularly difficult pit entry. There's a chicane just coming into the pit, so it's not a straight line as it was on the previous layouts of this track. This track was used from 1982 to 1991, and a couple of the chicanes were put in because of notable accidents through the Ost curve in the early 80s. So this is the first chicane. Again, the first chicane was tightened up a little. And of course, nowadays the circuit is a shadow of its former self. It is just the stadium section plus the added parts. So the cars no longer disappear into the forest where no spectators will ever see them, and then emerge into the stadium section. But it's good to have this recreated in R-Factor 2. Looks like a couple of people are experimenting with how close their radiator can be. Now, I'm assuming that the qualifying session, which is going to be about 10 to 15 minutes, if it's a private session, then there will be no opportunity for these drivers to have slipstreams, and they can smoke their engines as much as they want. They won't last an awful lot of time, but the rules with sim racing online are you need to do an out lap, you need to do your fast laps, and then you need to come in for your in lap. You can't stop out on circuit. If you stop out on circuit, that is your qualifying run done. I imagine the stewards might take a little bit of a dim view of people closing their radiator and smoking the engines all the way around if it's not a private session. So Phil Brown currently in second. Still a second off the current times, but you don't quite know whether people are putting in low fuel runs or they're possibly practicing laps for qualifying, or possibly putting in a full fuel run or not. As I say, it might be very tight on fuel for some of these cars, so people have got to be wary. And in the race, it's more than possible. For 45 minutes you could be stuck behind somebody, and you could be lifting and coasting just to save a little bit of fuel. Nick Westy coming around. So all of these BMW M1s are now smoking, so no one's adjusted their radiator, it seems. It's hard to slow it down, it seems, for this chicane. Now there's a name on the leaderboard that I've been practicing in my time off from the first round, because I apologised to them after the race and said, well, I was having trouble just looking at their name. So Paparinopoulos, I think I got that right. Because I called him Antonio before, just to avoid his surname, but Paparinopoulos, I think that's correct. So Paparinopoulos is currently down in, it looks like 14th place on the leaderboard. So track temperature is now up to a nice toasty 42.7 degrees. But air temperature 23.9. I imagine that's probably adding to some of the radiator problems. It's not like Hockenheim is high in altitude. So Lars Hagman currently in 6th place, looking up on the list. Him and his brother Bjorn did take the Porsche 935. But Lars Hagman now in the BMW M1 for this round. But they do have some time to find in practice. So currently still setting the personal best is Noig's at the top. 2 minutes 6. I wonder if anyone's going to get under the 2 minute mark. It would be interesting to see. Just looking at the clock, it looks like it's just about to run down to qualifying mode. And then we will get to see whether it is private or public. So 10 to 15 minutes sprint. See how fast you can go. Take off all your downforce so you dare. Put in as much fuel as you need. And see how fast you can go. Gilles de Silva. It looks like a custom paint job to me. Currently in the Ford Capri in 9th place. Now looking down the list, Gilles de Silva took the BMW E21. Last round. That's it. We are switching over to quality. So who is going to be the first out of the pits? Let's see. So 10 minutes in qualifying. Take out all the fuel. Take off as much wing as you can, because this is a low downforce circuit. And see if you can survive. It looks like it is not a private qualifying session, so this is going to be very interesting. Who's going to have a drafting partner? You don't really want to go out alone. But it does look like possibly Nick Westy is the first one out. John van der Geest not far behind, so John van der Geest will get a good tow. Now a whole bunch of cars out on the track. So we are relying on automatic cameras today. So it is the game's decision on what car we're focused on. It will try and pick the action, but I do have my map up so I can see any possible action that I need to switch to manually, but I'm mainly going to leave it to it. So, whole bunch of cars coming out together to see that BMW M1 heading off the circuit. I think that was Phil Brown. So this was our provisional practice pole sitter. Can he reproduce that 2 minutes point? Was it 2 minutes point 8 or 2 minutes point 6? We'll see. We'll see if we can get down under 2 minutes. You never know if that was a qualifying run or not, so he could go even quicker. So last time out at Norrisring, we had a pretty dominant performance by Tony Talviti, and I'm not seeing him on the list at the moment, so he may not be turning up for this round. So points up for grabs for the rest, and it looks like a lot of people are slowing down in the stadium section to get some space. I always find this a little bit of a pain. You just want to get on with your lap and you've got traffic in front, so a lot of these drivers probably don't want someone distracting them. But on a circuit like this, do you really want to be in someone else's draft? You have to hope that you're behind someone that you know is a little bit faster. So as I said, Norrisring was the first round, so Tony Talviti came away with the win. We pretty much didn't see a lot of Tony Talviti because he was out in front for a lot of the race, completely untouched. But Nick Westy managed to grab second, and Romain Lebreau came in third. So picking up points, Westy and Lebreau can pick up some points against the championship leader Talviti today. So John van der Geest coming down towards the first chicane. No, in fact this is the second chicane. I knew I'd get that wrong. So purple for Noig's, as expected, our provisional pole sitter in practice. Can you say that quickly? So purple sector. We have a smoking BMW out front, so that engine's not going to last very long. So we're coming up to the last chicane just before the stadium section. It's one of the faster of the chicanes, personally. John Van der Geest coming down to the stadium section. That's smoking BMW just behind. In fact, John Van der Geest has put 2 purple sectors in, so he's the fastest car of all. But Noix has returned fire and put in purple sectors of his own. So Nick Westy was the first out and is possibly the first to cross the line. And as he's had a little bit of an off somewhere, I don't actually see Westy on track. Westy has put in a time in the 2 minutes, but Noix obliterates it with a 1:58.2. So there's your qualifying time. The smoking BMW of Phil Brown tumbling down the order, but he's not put in a representative time. It takes so long for these cars to come around and just put in one lap. So a lot of these guys have got to remember to open their radiators, and I'm hoping the race director is going to remind all of the BMW runners that they need to open their radiators for 45 minutes of racing. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of BMW spare parts after this race, or in the first few laps, in fact. So Noix is going even quicker, probably helped by a little bit of a tow from that BMW in front, flicking it through the S-curve chicane. It's able to keep a really tight line around here. Added bonus of being in the tow of that BMW in front. I believe that is Nick Westy in front. He's actually being held up now. But let's see what his second sector is like. He is on pole by 2.2 seconds. So Noix in first, Power in second, Brown has popped up to third, Nick Westy in fourth. John Van der Geest has slipped into fifth, but the times, I don't know if anyone can actually get under the 2 minutes. Look like Nick Westy's off on the right there. So Noix was able to put in a personal best and even the fastest sector of all in the first sector. Doesn't look like his second sector has come through for some reason, which is a little bit of a strange. I wonder whether he maybe missed one of the timing beams, but he's got to be at 1:58.2, and he does not. As you can imagine, he did get a little held up on the sectors 2 and 3. So Julian Powell, or Pords, I did ask people how they wanted their names pronounced, but I only got message back from a couple. So Phil Brown, personal best in the first sector, coming in fourth place, 2.5 seconds off. So this is Maxime Perotti, currently in third position. He did have a competitive run out at Norrisring, which was a 6th place. He did see him in the thick of the action. Now I'm looking down the list. Perotti was in the BMW N1 the first round. I believe this is Noig's first round of the championship. It means there will be an extra choice of car for him for the remainder. So this is round 2 of 5. So he's basically got extra choice of what he wants to do for the remainder of this championship. Slowing BMW on the straight there, getting out of the way of our current provisional pole. Just like Julian Powell has got a little bit closer, but still 1.5 adrift in second place. Just 2 minutes of the session to go. I'm concentrating on one of the fastest cars on the circuit at the moment. It looks like we also have at the bottoms of the timesheets at the moment we have a newcomer that I haven't seen with Sim Racing online for a little while, which is Kokotsky, currently in 15th place. That's an interesting way to go through that final corner. I don't know if it's the fastest way to go through that corner, but power sliding that Ford Capri. So yellow sectors in the first, second and third sectors, unfortunately, and this is Phil Brown BMW failing towards the end of the lap because it is smoking away there. Maxime Perotti is up to now third, still 2 seconds adrift. So the Capri is fast. He's having trouble. We cut away just before the accident there. I think he did come to grief, which is actually the corner that Noigs is coming up to. So there's yellow flags all over the place. There's a car on the left and a car taking to the escape road. So 0.2 up on his personal best and the best of the rest. So coming up to the Brems curve 2. In fact, it's the Brems chicane, not Brems curve. So it looks like those cars on the map I'm seeing. Perotti is stationary at the just after the first sector. I don't know whether he's can get going again. He may have taken the rear wing off that Capri. In fact, it might mean that his session is over. So personal best in the first, slightly worse in the second, and a lock-up coming into the stadium section, and I believe he's coming into the pits. No further improvements. He does have a margin of 1.5 seconds, so I feel he may be safe for provisional pole here. So Phil Brown, personal best in the first sector. Cheeky little toe from that, looks like Jules de Silva in front. That BMW M1 seems to be lasting quite well, even though it's smoking away, and I believe he's going to get held up in this final part. No fault of Jules putting in his time. It's just unfortunate that Phil Brown, a faster car coming up behind, and it does look like a lot of people are coming down to the end of there. So Fabio Lozio currently in 10th place. Personal best in the first, but slightly down in the second. So I wonder whether he was caught out by those yellow flags in the first sector. And that's a recovering Porsche in the background. Looks like he stays in 10th place. Philipp Pichler currently 11th place. Personal best in the second. So let's see where he can improve. He's got to improve by about 0.8 of a second to go up a place. So let's see if Pichler can get into the top 10. So hitting the curb on the exit. Unfortunately, Pichler stays in 11th place. And it does look like that might be all of the drivers completing their laps. So Kokotsky has finished their lap. And Pichler has finished his lap as well. So I will set the starting order. And let's show where everyone got to. So let's see the starting order of these guys. So the starting order is set. So it was pole for Noigs, 1.5 ahead of everybody else. Powell in second, Julian Powell in the Capri, Perotti in third in the Capri. Then we have Phil Brown in the BMW in fourth, Nick Westy in the BMW in fifth, John van der Geest in the Capri in sixth, Lebro in seventh with the BMW M1, and we've got Lars Hagman in the BMW as well. In eighth, Bjorn Hagman in ninth in the BMW, Fabio Lozio in the BMW in 10th, Philipp Pichler in the BMW M1. And then we have Rob Milliken in 12th for the BMW M1, Jules de Silva in the Capri in 13th, Simon Barnes in 14th in the Capri, and Antonis Paparanopoulos in the BMW E21 in 15th, and I believe that those are the only people to set times. I believe there is a 16th, the 16th runner. In fact, he may have disappeared off the timesheets. I wonder if perhaps he disconnected just after qualifying. So, drivers coming out for just a little bit of a warm-up. So we do have a formation start for this series. So they're going to go around an entire lap and then come around the final corner, and the leader can take them to the green. So it is a manual formation lap. So the leader has to keep a moderate speed. That's why the race will be set to about 47 minutes. So that the drivers can get their formation lap in. I'm very interested to see that it is a very tight turn one, but as soon as you get through turn one, and if the drivers can come through turn one unscathed, then they have a big long straight to sort themselves out. But I wonder how long it's going to take for the field to string out. We did see a lot of difference in lap times, particularly because this is a power circuit and a low downforce circuit. Car choice seems to be a thing. We seem to see a lot of Capris and BMWs near the top of the timesheets, but that's not to say that nothing dramatic can happen. But as we've seen, sometimes it is a dramatic start to the race, which can sometimes decide what happens later on. It does settle down when everybody starts to settle in and stretch their legs a bit. Think about their fuel saving, about saving what they have until the very end, and then we have a showdown at the end. So, as I said before, drivers do need to practice their pit entry. There isn't really a particular pit speed limit for this track, I believe. But they do need to practice their pit entry, because there's going to be a pit window starting when 20 minutes has gone until 30 minutes. So when the clock says there is 40 minutes to go, up until 30 minutes to go, drivers need to make their pit stops. So let's see if we can actually get some car data from these guys. Let's see what gear they're in and what their throttle and braking is like. So Phil Brown being shadowed by another BMW. So no smoking BMWs this time, so maybe they have opened the radiators now, they're running race setups. But I'm interested to see whether we do see some cars on fire. And let's hope people can keep their noses clean. We want a clean race. We want 45 minutes of racing, not 45 minutes of crashing. So coming up towards the stadium section, turns 11, 12 and 13. Couple of drivers deciding that they don't need to go out for a warm-up lap. There is no need to do the practice starts. Sometimes people use their time in warm-up to do a practice start, but as I say, this is a formation lap. So we are modelling the 70s and 80s DRM Group 5 with these cars, and they were sporadically through that couple of decades. I believe the BMW M1 was at least 1981 or 1982. And I seem to remember from memory the Capri is either the latter end of the 70s. So we will hear the bells go at the start, but the drivers will be heading around for a formation lap. So 16 drivers. It does look like Kokotsky was able to get back in after qualifying. So we do have 16 drivers on the grid, which is good to see. So Noigs will head them away. Let's see if we can possibly... I don't know whether the manufacturer's logos or the team logos work in this. No, they don't. We'll have to stick with car numbers. There are a couple of duplicated paint jobs, unfortunately, because the paint jobs were a little bit limited in what people could choose. So Noigs up front, heading them away. It is a very long lap. So it's going to be over 2 minutes before they decide to go green. They'll be going green outside or out of the final corner. That banked final turn. So it's a question of what drivers want to do on their formation lap. We see a couple of people weaving to get some heat into their tyres. They've got plenty of time for that. I would imagine a lot of people are perhaps holding a little bit of brake just to warm those brakes. A long lap means their brakes are going to be pretty cold, so just accelerating and just holding a little bit of a brake, just tapping a little bit of a brake just to keep them warm so that they're not 2 blocks of ice when they come into turn 1. But it's a single file restart as well, which makes things a little bit easier. I'd imagine if this was a standing start and they were heading into turn 1, it might get a little bit messy. But I'm very interested and looking forward to what this chicane is going to be like on the first light, because you don't really want to go through there too wide. There is just not enough space to be going through that chicane and heading through this Ost curve. Notable for a couple of accidents from, notably Didier Pironi had a horrible accident at the Ost curve when it was a flat out corner. In fact, maybe the chicane had already been put in when Pironi had his accident. I'm just trying to remember, there was an Alfa Romeo. I was quizzing about this last time when we were talking about Hockenheim. I can't remember the driver's name specifically, but if you remember the driver's name, shout it out. Unfortunately, he did not survive. But we were coming to the end of the lap. We're coming into Sector 3, so Noigs is keeping a very steady pace. We're going to be heading into the stadium section. So Noigs in first, Powell in second, Perotti in third, Brown in fourth, Westy in fifth. So how warm are those brakes? How warm are those tyres coming into turn 1? So 2 Capris, even 3 Capris head the field. It's not what I expected. So coming through the final corner. So we're going to see him opening the throttle and coming out of this final corner, and off we go. We are green. Slightly wide on the exit, caught a lot of people napping. I think someone's coming into the pits. Did they accidentally not fuel up? I don't know who that was in the background. But Noigs got a really good start. Away from Powell in second, Brown in third. Westy still in 4th. It looks like Lebro has dropped down. Currently in 6th place. But you need to be within about 0.6, 0.7 to even get any whiffs of draft, I believe. So through the first chicane, all nice and clean. I'm not seeing any yellow flags. The entire field has come through intact. I did see a car going in the pits, but the car is already out. So I'm wondering whether that was a drive-through that someone was taking. But all 16 cars, oh, that was very tight through the first time through that chicane. Taking all the risks. So edging out a gap, 1.7 already. So let's head back to the pack. So this is Phil Brown in 3rd, with Nick Westy following up. That's a hell of a camera view from the helicam. So 2 BMWs lying astern. It does look like Phil Brown has not opened up his radiator. That engine is not going to last many laps at all. So I'm wondering whether we're going to see Phil Brown coming into the pits. Pretty sharpish. It was in the briefing that people had to open up the BMW radiator. Unfortunately, Phil Brown may have missed that instruction. So this is John van der Geest. Currently now down to 6th. It does look like Barreau is getting it all wrong. So fastest lap time for Noix out front, 1:58.2. So matching his qualifying time. So Nick Westy getting a face full of engine smoke. Now, is that someone that took a very interesting line coming out of turn 1, or was that someone coming out of the pits? I'm not too sure. So Perotti now down. Lovely strip seam coming up the first straight and into 10th place. Passing that BMW. Up to the first chicane. Needs to make a little bit of headway. Philip Pichler. This BMW seems to be intact. No smoking in that respect. So the Prix of Powell is now down to 5th. It was Powell that had to maybe take a drive-through because he's now down the order. He was in 2nd. So the pit window is now open with 40 minutes to go. So drivers have 10 minutes in order to do their pit stops. So we're going to see whether drivers decide to come in early or come in late. So Kokotsky is having a hell of a battle at the back of the field. I believe that is Rob Milliken just behind. So Powell has dropped down from 2nd place, is now in 5th. Currently chasing a BMW E21 ahead. Looks like he's much faster, but he can't quite get past. Again, coming in the pits, has he not been able to clear his penalty? Or he maybe got another penalty, I'm not too sure. Was that speeding in pit lane, doing a drive-through? So he is coming through the pits. Or perhaps that is a scheduled pit stop. There is a couple of people that are deciding to... There is a stopped car. That is Kokotsky, I think, has spun around in the stadium section. He's managed to get going again. So our leader, Noix, has decided to take an early pit stop, which puts him back into traffic. We'll see if that's a good idea or a bad idea. But Phil Brown has about 8 minutes to decide. He's now our provisional leader. He has 8 minutes to decide when he comes in. He's got an advantage of 1.9. So this is Noix making his way through traffic. And in fact, this circuit may be a little bit easier for drivers that want to do that strategy if they're back in the pack, they can always draft past drivers in front. So this is Hagman being overtaken by Perotti. So they're going to be swapping places all race, it seems. BMW has it on the straight. There are a couple of BMWs that are smoking away here. And I did say that Phil Brown was possibly, his engine is possibly not going to survive the entire race, but there is a couple of BMWs that are suffering from this. So Lebro in the E21. That's a spinner. That is our leader. That's our provisional leader. It's having a little bit of a spin, getting caught up behind. So it hasn't worked out for our leader, but he does have a little bit of a pace advantage. Looks like rally driving coming through this final part of the circuit. Is this Julian Powell coming in again? That's a hell of a pit entry. So it's all going wrong for Julian. I think we've seen him come into the pits at least 3 times, and I wonder whether he's stalled it. We'll see if he gets going. He is stationary in the pit lane. He has got going again, I think. So Lebro and Westy now nose to tail. That E21 is sliding about all over the place. But we'll see whether the BMW M1 has a power advantage over the E21. Looks like we have a yellow flag in the pit lane. Seems to be some shenanigans going on. So, with 36 minutes to go, it's Brown, Lebro, Westy, Geest, and Lars Hagman in 5th. So it looks like the E21 of Lebro is able to hang in front of this, the power, the BMW M1 of Nick Westy in 3rd. So Brown's advantage has now gone up to 2.7. So what Brown needs is these guys to be battling away and taking time away. But I fear that BMW in front is not going to last too much longer. How long before we find flames? So this is 9th place. Hagman has now been dropped by Perotti in front. And he's now got Paparanopoulos for company in 10th place. He's deciding to go defensive, which is strange considering I thought that the M1 possibly had a power advantage, and it does look like Julian Powell has decided to call it a day. That is a pity. Qualifying a good 2nd place, but it seemed to all come undone in the race. So the battle on for 2nd, 0.4 of a second. Doesn't look like he's closing an awful lot on the straight. So what kind of downforce is Lebro running in front to be able to keep in front of Nick Westy? So our provisional leader, still back in the 7th place, has put in a best lap time of 1:58.2, matching his qualifying time. He's currently 13 seconds off the lead. So rally driving coming through that chicane for Paparanopoulos. Now this is Perotti, and now on the back of Lars Hagman. So it was Lars Hagman that he was having a battle with. It's not Bjorn Hagman. I knew I'd get confused. I'm heading back to Gilles de Silva and Lozio. Have a little bit of battle back in 11th and 12th place. So you can hear the spooling up of that BMW E21. So it's Capri versus BMW. Looks like the Capri has the legs on it. Here's the leader coming through the field. Now up to 6th place. But after his spin, he's leaving black rubber lines all the way through these curves. He needs to get a move on. He knows he's got time to make up. Because Brown still leads. The lead is now up to 3.5 seconds. So Noix possibly has fresher tyres than these guys anyway, but they only did 5 minutes of racing. So the pit window is going to close in 2 minutes' time. So a nice drafting battle. That looks like Van der Geest up front. Hagman having to watch this battle from behind here, watching those Capris go at it. Now we can take a look at the number of stops to see if some of these drivers have stopped and haven't. It's not really that reliable, and it doesn't look like... Oh, and John Van der Geest gets that all wrong. Was that coming up against the leader? I don't know whether his car is damaged. It did look like he got a little bit caught out braking for the Ostkurve chicane. So our pole sitter Noix is now in 5th. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce his name, but we're going to go with it. I wonder if a lot of these drivers have maybe forgotten about the pit window. So I'm sure the pit window opened with... maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe the pit window is from 30 minutes to 20 minutes to go. Quite easy in the end. Perotti's suffering with a lot of oversteer coming through that stadium section. We have seen a lot of cars deciding to go rally driving style. So Noix back up to 4th place. So if I read the rules incorrectly, then perhaps Noix has pitted too early. So lock up from the car in front. These drivers are pushing, bouncing over those curbs. It's a 45-minute sprint race. There's no endurance tactics here. So 30 minutes remaining. It's Brown in the lead by 4.8 seconds. Abro in 2nd. Westy 3rd. Noix in 4th with Perotti in 5th. I am going to check my rules again to see if I read the rules wrong. It's quite possible that I did. So revised penalty rules. For failing to do a stop or not changing all 4 wheels or coming in too early, too late, the penalty is 10 places. So that would be costly if people do it wrong. Very, very costly. So a mandatory pit stop. Let's have a look at the rule. So from the start, after 20 minutes, the pit window opened. I did get it wrong. So has Noix pitted too early? So it opens after 20 minutes and closes after 30 minutes of racing when there's 15 minutes to go. So there's still time for people to do their pit stops. So all is not lost. All is not lost. So I am surprised that Brown is still out there in front with his smoking BMW. Maybe he's able to lift a little. Lift and coast coming into... pushing all over the track. Coming on the exit of turn 1. So now Noix is on the back of Westy. So either Noix has read the rules incorrectly like I did, or perhaps he had to pit early for a drive-through. So side by side, Jill was just getting a little bit too wide from Lozio. There was a lot of space there, but unfortunately he was a bit too kind and unfortunately went off. So side by side coming down to the chicane, Nick Westy and what we think is the driver that's going to go back into the lead. Pumping over those curbs, trying to get the power down as quickly as possible. So there is a bunch of cars, second, third, fourth, a little bit of a gap to fifth, and then a bigger gap to sixth and seventh. So third and fourth staying together. I don't think that Nick Westy has the pace to stay with Noigs. We're looking at the lap times. Yeah, in fact, Nick Westy is in the 202s. Noigs is in the 158, so he's going to be taking points away from our championship contenders, this being his first round of the championship. Unfortunately, we don't have the championship leader here today racing with us, so he will lose out on some points. So Bjorn Hagman a little bit adrift in 10th place. So Noigs now coming in for his scheduled stop. So it should pop up on the jacks. Or not. That looked like a stop and go. This is very curious. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So this is Bjorn Hagman coming into the pits. Let's see what he does if we stick with this camera for long enough. In fact, we don't. So Simon Barnes, 35 seconds adrift of Rob Milliken out the back there. So something must have happened to Simon Barnes early on. So 26 minutes to go in this race. Kokotsky and Powell are the only do not finish drivers or retirees. BMW or Brown is still holding on by the skin of its teeth. So Bjorn Hagman's still in the pits for his scheduled stop. We should see a flurry of activity. Drivers now have 10 minutes to do their pit stop. So Gilles de Silva, after he's off, he's managed to rejoin and he's back on the tail of Fabio Lozio. Cabri versus BMW. So Westy now on the tail of Lebro. I think Lebro and Westy are quite evenly matched. I'm looking at the 201s, 202s. They're very evenly matched. So I'm wondering whether that was perhaps a stop in the pits. Was he penalising himself for perhaps an infringement? There is a rule in Sim Racing Online, what we call the punt rule. If you accidentally hit someone up the rear, you take a stop and go as penalty. So I wonder whether they were doing that. We did see an accident with John van der Geest. Every single car just disappeared then. I was getting quite worried. I thought, no. I thought the whole world had ended. So Nick Westy and Lebro are pitch battle. 0.4 separate them. I'm not sure that that's completely correct. So Gilles de Silva coming into the very tight pit lane. Smoking that left rear tyre coming out of the Ost curve. Nick Westy in the wheel tracks. He has a provisional pole or a pole sitter again behind him again. He must be feeling like it's a bit like deja vu. He's seen this guy come up and pass him twice, I think, now. So Brown still leads. He has a lead of 8.3 seconds. So it's going Brown's way at the moment. Meanwhile, our early leader has been stuck in traffic for this entire first segment of the race. So it looks like that BMW M1 is particularly a handful through the tight sections of this track, as you might expect. And it may be that the Capri is well matched to the BMW in speed, but it's able to handle the curves. And Nick Westy follows in Lebro. Remember, there are collisions in the pit lane, boys. I think our pole sitter forgot about that and rear-ended Lebro. Hopefully there is no damage. I believe damage has been reduced from the first round, because these cars are a little bit fragile. That may mean that Phil Brown's car may last a bit longer than before. So John van der Geest now up to 9th. After that little accident just coming into the Oscar chicane. So Phil Brown our leader, with Pichler now in second by 30 seconds. So I believe our leader Brown has about 5 minutes to do his scheduled pit stop. Lozio is now up to 4th. I don't believe he's pitted either. It looks like our leader has now DNF'd. That collision in the pit lane was terminal. So the win is now up for grabs. Who will it be? Brown is in the box seat at the moment. 30-second lead, but he still has to do his pit stop. Pit stop is around 27 seconds-ish. Not sure if that is including the pit in and the pit out. So we did see Lebro coming into the pit lane at the same time as Westy. Lebro has got out of the pit lane in front of Westy. Unless I got that completely. No, that was Paranopoulos. I think that came in just in front. They are running a similar paint job. So Simon Barnes out on his own in 14th place. Same as John van der Geest, a very lonely run out in 8th place. So Phil Brown now pits from the lead. Let's see how far behind he comes out. So he should stay in front of Lebro. This is Phil Brown here, stationary. The temps are probably going to be rising as well, because there's no air going through this engine. 20 minutes remaining. Lebro pits. So Phil Brown is suddenly the favourite for this round. I may have just cursed him by saying that. So a flurry of pit stops. So it looks like Pichler is in, Lebro is in, Brown is in. Brown's now down to 4th place. So I wonder whether there was possibly some damage, or possibly he needs to adjust the radiator. So Lozio out in front, all on his own, but he's still yet to pit. So let's read that rule one more time. So from 20 minutes, pit window opens, so that will mean 25 minutes to go. Closes after 30 minutes of racing, so they've got until 15 minutes to go, I believe. That's how I read the rule. So Lozio has time. He's got 13 seconds on Perotti in 2nd. And Phil Brown now pitted in 3rd. Let's see if our pit stops. So it looks like Perotti has not pitted. Lozio's not pitted. Pichler has pitted because we saw him come into the pits. So that's a lie, and same as Hagman. Bjorn Hagman has pitted. So that's a little bit of a lie as well. So can't rely on the tower. Paranopoulos is in 8th place. Currently looking like he's shadowing Pichler in front after his pit stop. The race has been relatively clean so far, apart from fortunate accident by John van der Geest into this chicane. And that collision in the pit lane, I believe. Maybe drivers too used to having no collisions in the pit lane. He tried to go through one of the drivers, but in fact you can't do that in R Factor 2. So the track is rubbering up nicely. Nice dark line on the track. So Bjorn Hagman hasn't really been able to make an impression, any inroads into this top 10. But he's now shadowing Lebro, who runs a little bit wide. Does that BMW fit on the outskirts of that corner? No, it doesn't. Actually, it looks like Lebro is holding up Bjorn Hagman in the BMW. It seems to be turning well for Bjorn Hagman in the stadium section. It does look like an awkward beast coming in to some of these tighter curves, but that's going to give Lebro a bad exit. So under the rear wing, possibly an easy pass coming up this main straight. We do have 13th place. Is that Simon Barnes that's gone around? That is Simon Barnes. Unfortunately, that was either an attempt to come in the pits and just missing the pit lane. If that was an attempt to come into pit lane, he may now have missed the pit window, so he will get penalised. That's unfortunate for Simon Barnes. So back to the battle. So this is Pichler and Paparinopoulos, 7th and 8th. So BMW versus BMW, well matched down the straight if they're in the draft. Slightly wide on the exit. Coming through that chicane though, it has meant he's dropped too far back to get a run up this short straight. You could take a wider line coming into that stadium section. Back to the battle between the Lebro and Bjorn Hagman. Places switched around. It's BMW versus BMW. But the E21 in front. So Phil Brown with Nick Westy in tow. Phil Brown is still smoking out there. I wonder whether the stewards will look at that for possibly... I'm not sure what rule that you would class that under, but smoking in the in your opponent's faces is a little bit rude, I would say. So Lebro and Bjorn Hagman. Bjorn Hagman again gets a better run onto the straight than Lebro, and it's going to be an easy pass up this straight. So I'd imagine we're going to see some grandstand finishes if drivers stay within draft range. You don't really want to be in the lead coming into the final lap. So you've got to time your move correctly. So maybe on the short straight just before the stadium section. So if you're the car behind, make sure that you're right under the rear wing down that short straight and pass into the stadium section. And I don't believe be able to pass. It looks like Pichler may be running a bit of a low radiator as well. I did see some smoke coming out of there. Was that tyre smoke or was that engine smoke? Possibly tyre smoke. It's either that or he's marginal. Now Lozio coming into the pits. I think this is too late for his pit stop. So 13 minutes to go. He's missed the pit window. So Lozio may lose out here by 10 places. He will be penalised. Paparinopoulos has got this It's more like a rally car than a Group 5 sports car. Very, very loose. Of course, these drivers are running low downforce because of Hockenheim being a mostly flat out circuit, so take all the downforce off you can. For the rest of the rounds of the championship, I don't believe that there will be as many straights as we have here. Perhaps Zandvoort will be kind of similar, but still not classed as a low downforce circuit. Again, Bjorn Hagman under the rear wing, coming out of turn 1. Now, which way does he go? He goes to the outside. Does he have enough straight line speed to overtake the E21 on the outside? He does. That was a great move. Great move. So he went all the way around the outside on that chicane. He had enough of the car alongside to be able to beast mode his way into the next part, but means he's vulnerable. So one advantage of the BMW is that how wide it is. So Bjorn Hagman places his car exactly in the middle of the track. Whoa! So Bjorn Hagman got it all wrong coming out of the OS curve. Got a little bit of oversteer, which meant that Lebro was going to be coming up on his rear, and I think was a little bit caught out. Touched a little bit of the grass, but great recovery. So let's see if Lebro can catch up to the back of Bjorn Hagman once again. So 11 minutes to go. Perotti now leads by 10 seconds. Westy second. Brown is now down to third. Not by much. Lars Hagman now fourth. John van der Gies in fifth. So Paparinopoulos, similar car to Lebro, so it's extra confusing. But now he is chasing another BMW, but this BMW is Philip Pichler in front. In fact, I did see a puff of white smoke from Pichler, and that is 9th place. Is that Lebro round again? So Lebro getting it all wrong in the stadium section. So possibly pushing a bit too hard to get back up to the rear end of Bjorn Hagman. That looks like a smoking Phil Brown still. So Phil Brown only 1.2 seconds behind Westy in second. 10 minutes to go. Now I did say there would be a slight lull in the action. So that looked like 12th place. Milliken just getting out of the way. A little bit off the pace at the moment. Letting the faster guys through. So I don't think it's over for second and third. So Westy and Brown. But meanwhile, the battle for 6th and 7th. Paparinopoulos on the tail of Philip Pichler. You can hear someone banging off the limiter in the stadium section. It's an awful sound. An awful sound. You can hear the engine saying enough is enough. So this would be a surprise for Perotti. I don't think he wasn't on the front row when we started this race, but he's ended up in the lead with just under 9 minutes to go of this race. So again, hanging that rear end of that BMW E21. So a gaggle of cars, second and third, with fourth not too far behind, but 6th and 7th. I don't think they're quick enough to catch 5th place. Yes, that BMW is definitely smoking when we come to the ends of the straights. So rally style coming through that first chicane, heading up to the next chicane. Phil Brown still smoking out front. Well, in fact, in third place. Doesn't look like he's making too many inroads. Maybe by a 1/10 of a second. Looking at last lap times, Nick Westy and Phil Brown look very well matched. He was able to catch by 2/10 of a second. That's now Lebro caught back up to Bjorn Hagman. So we've now swapped places again. So whether or not that was a mistake by Bjorn Hagman that let Lebro catch up, or whether it was just the pace of Lebro. As to say, it's gonna come down to strategy of where you want to be. Where do you place your car on the final lap? We have seen that BMW is mighty in a straight line, but it can be beaten when you're in the draft. But placing it in the right place, particularly wide car, if you place it in the middle of the track, drivers are going to have to be very careful trying to get round. So where do you want to place yourself? Pichler getting it all wrong coming out that final turn. Put the rubber down. Right, let's see what this BMW E21 has. In fact, he has everything because he's passed Pichler on the inside. Pichler got it all wrong in turn 1. So, Phil Brown now on the tail of Nick Westy. So, M1 versus M1. Let's see. We haven't seen many battles that have been the same car versus the same car. Unfortunately, Phil Brown made a slight mistake through the Ost curve chicane. That's what I'm calling it. So he's got to do all of that work again. He got within 1 second of Nick Westy. In fact, within half a second of Nick Westy, but unfortunately, one slip up at that chicane. You can see Lars Hagman just out the back there, stalking away. So Bjorn Hagman, is he being dropped by Lebro now? As now Lebro is possibly out of draft range. But we will see. So for the 5 rounds of this championship, drivers did have the opportunity to take any of the cars in this group. So they've got the option of the BMW E21, the BMW M1, the Ford Capri, the Porsche 935, and the Lancia M2. I don't believe I've seen any Lancia M2s. So what track are drivers going to decide to use the Lancia M2? It doesn't seem to be a favoured car, but are we going to have one of the rounds just a field full of Lancia M2s? We're going to have to see. But there will be 3 rounds after this every 2 weeks. So join us back here every 2 weeks at Sim Racing Online's YouTube channel. We broadcast our Factor 2, Le Mans Ultimate and Assetto Corsa Evo at the moment. So Bjorn Hagman is able to stay with Lebro. So this is not over between 8th and 9th. So 4 minutes to go. Perotti in first, Westy second, Brown third, Lars Hagman in fourth, and John van der Geest in 5th. I'm just looking where the leader is on the track at the moment. The leader is just coming into the 3rd sector. So there is possibly going to be 2 laps after this. But that is a lead of about 9 seconds. So Lebro placing his car right in the centre of the track like Bjorn Hagman did earlier. No room on the outside this time for Bjorn Hagman to slip through. So Lebro is wise to that move now. Bjorn Hagman has shown his hand. So no passing for him in the first chicane. That's also one of the problems. You don't want to show your hand too early. So if you put a passing move on somebody, you don't want to show your strategy too early. So So the driver in front is not going to be surprised. Better exit coming out of the Ost curve for Bjorn Hagman. Better traction for that M1. But again, Lebro places his car right in the centre of the track. Coming into the Bremen chicane 2. So after that little excursion, Pichler has regrouped and Paparinopoulos is still on the tail. That is 13th place. I believe Simon Brands has had another off. He has got going again just before the first sector. Or coming into the second sector, rather. So, down to 2 minutes to go. The leader is just coming up to the last sector of the lap, so there will be one more lap after this. Paparinopoulos, how do you get past this very, very wide BMW? Pichler placing his car in the right place. So we've got two battles on between Lebro and Hagman, and Pichler and Paparinopoulos. Again, Pichler's car is smoking away. But we've seen Phil Brown's car smoking away for the entire race, so if he's going to get to the end, I would imagine that Pichler's going to get to the end. So the leader crosses the line, which will be our last lap. It is a 2 minute or just under lap around here. So Philip Pichler still out in front of Paparinopoulos. So when they cross the line, it will be their last lap. So what has Paparinopoulos got in store? Has he shown his hand too early? You want to be in the right place at the right time. So lapped car just in front. I believe that's Milliken. No, that in fact that is not Milliken. Not sure who that is. Just behind there. I'm not recognising the colours. That might be... It's not Kokotsky. But up the front straight. Car in the centre. He moves to the inside line. Can he do what Bjorn Hagman did? Just enough space on the outside line, but not enough traction. So second chance coming up to the Ost curve chicane. Again, goes to the inside to defend. Is there enough room on the outside? It's not too wide around here, so you've got to sort yourselves out by here. Unfortunately, we cut away just before the accident. He got on the marbles, I think, and he couldn't slow that car down. It looks like Perotti coming through the stadium section. The clock has run down to 0. He has 10 seconds in hand. He can take it easy coming through these final turns, but it will be Perotti coming through these final 2 turns to take an unexpected victory for the second round of the Group 5 DRM Championship. Nick Westy was able to fend off Phil Brown in third, so Nick Westy comes across the line in the second. Good points for Nick Westy. Possibly going to take the championship lead after this. And we have Phil Brown with Lars Hagman just so close, but yet so far 4th and 5th. A lonely, or 3rd and 4th rather, 5th for John van der Geest, but a well-earned victory for Perotti. And I imagine the admins are going to have to go through the pit windows and see who pitted on time and who didn't. I believe this is Rob Milliken looking slightly wounded coming back to the pits. We just got time for 8th, 9th and 10th to work their way in. So after that accident, it did look like Lebro was able to stay in front of Bjorn Hagman. In fact, it wasn't an accident by then. What happened to Paparinopoulos? So Pichler did finish 6th in the end. Paparinopoulos was 7th. LeBro finishes ahead of Hagman. So smoke in the tyres. We don't need to use them anymore. That is it. That is it. Well, I'm out of breath after that. I'm out of breath. The action was fast and furious. Fast and furious. So there's normally a lull in the middle of the race, but then it suddenly picks up near the end. So let's check out the results. So the results of the race are... So Perotti came away with the win. Nick Westy in second, who I believe now takes the lead in the championship because Tony Talvuti was not here today. Phil Brown manages to take that smoking BMW all the way to the end in third. Lars Hagman in fourth. John van der Geest, a very lonely but steady fifth place. Philip Pichler, what seemed like a race-long battle with Paparinopoulos in seventh, but it stayed as it was. So BMW versus BMW. And then we have Romain Lebreau in 8th versus another BMW of Bjorn Hagman in 9th. Fabio Lozio, who I might think that pitted a little bit late outside the pit window, so he may receive a penalty, which unfortunately is 10 places. So Fabio Lozio in 10th. We then have Jules De Silva in 11th, Rob Milliken in 12th, Simon Barnes in 13th, and our do not finishes are Noyes, who was our pole sitter, and it looks like came into the pits a bit more than I thought he should have done, whether it was for penalties or for scheduled pit stops. And unfortunately ran into the car in the pits. Maybe that was terminal damage, or retired in embarrassment. But Noyes in 14th, Kokotsky another do not finish in 15th. They will still score points even if they did not finish. And the last of the runners was in second early on in the race, but unfortunately looked like span in the pits and could not get that car start again, so ended up 16th. So, what have we got in store for the rest of this season? So that is round 2 over and done with. So we say goodbye to the straights of Germany and Hockenheim, and we say hello to the twisty non-chicane version of Zolder. So it's the 1979 version of Zolder. So if you know Zolder, it doesn't have some of the chicanes that the latter versions do. Some of the curbs are kind of a little bit knife edge, so drivers have got to be a bit wary about that. So that's on the 14th of February. Then on the 28th of February, 2 weeks after that, we have Zandvoort. And then for our last round at Nürburgring GP, the 14th of March. So I'm out of breath after that. I always am. It always comes down to the wire. These drivers always put on a good show for us, and car choice is going to be an issue. Again, we haven't seen anybody take the Lancia M2 yet out of the lot, so when's that going to be chosen? When is that going to be chosen indeed? So, thank you for watching, everybody. Hope to see you next time. Keep rubber side down, and we'll see you next time on Sim Racing Online. See you later.